Welcome to the podcast of heaven.
I'm Heidi Brown Gilkison. My husband Michael Gilkison and I are both huge fans of the Book of Heaven, and we were fans of the Telepathy Tapes podcast. And it was through our collaboration here with Katie that we decided to do follow-up to her book, The Book of Heaven. We're producing this podcast, The Podcast of Heaven. This is hosted by Katie Asher and inspired by her son, Houston.
I've thought 10 different ways how to intro the first one, and it's like I've played 10 different scenarios in my mind.
Michael, why don't you just kind of do a bunch of different ones, and then you can kind of see what they feel and sound like, and just because you can edit and pick the one that you like best.
Yeah. Well, I like it natural too. I was thinking I would introduce Heidi, and then Heidi would introduce you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Then...
I think that we should, just for the first one, introduce you. So it's like, so there's
I did like that because it feels natural. It actually really does feel very natural to how we met and how to introduce us to the podosphere. I don't even know what it's called.
Exactly.
Oh, and
the podcasting community.
And I didn't want to forget, we have an email, podcastofheaven@gmail.com.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And when you get an email from us, it says Pod of Heaven.
Oh, that's awesome.
But the email is podcastofheaven@gmail.com. So you guys can email us and give us notes. We'll listen to them. I'm sure all three of us will read it. I know I will.
Yeah.
So, but I'm Michael. This is my wife, Heidi. And of course, Katie Asher. So we're very glad to be doing this. Thanks for letting us do this, by the way. It's a huge honor.
Oh my gosh. I have to tell y'all that being able to get to know people that our story has impacted, that is one of the biggest thrills of my life. And to now, I feel like we're friends. And so it's just I get to share this journey with people that I truly have come to know and enjoy. So that's a delight to me.
Yes,
awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So just to sort of bring people in, I'm Heidi Brown Gilkison. My husband, Michael Gilkison, and I are both huge fans of the Book of Heaven. And we were fans of the Telepathy Tapes podcast. And it was through our collaboration here with Katie that we decided to do, as a companion or a follow-up to her book, The Book of Heaven, we're producing this podcast, The Podcast of Heaven.
I'm holding it up for people just listening, but
Yep.
It doesn't work. I have a blur effect on, but it's right there. It's a good book.
So Michael has produced podcasts before. He's also a filmmaker and a comedian. And I am a social media expert, social media consultant. I have been for over a decade. And this was a beautiful, very serendipitous way for me to transfer a lot of my body of work into a field I'm very passionate about, autism advocacy. So, we're gonna make you sing at some point during the show. Not this one, but another one. Because Katie probably doesn't even know. Did you know how good she can sing?
I've heard.
We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I haven't actually gotten to hear, but that's different. Hearing is different than I'm surrounded by people that can sing.
Yeah.
So it's
Katie's daughter is an incredibly talented classical operatic singer. So
does your daughter does she need a microphone when she sings?
No.
That's how Heidi is. Yeah.
She will blow you away.
Yeah. We ought to get them to try to break glass sometime. That'd be awesome.
She's a mezzo. Not a soprano. Not the high soprano. So
do you have to be a soprano to break the glass?
The high soprano is, it's really about frequency again.
Right.
It's all about frequency. So it's the frequency that essentially disrupts the chemical connections in the matter.
Nice.
Well,
I
let's
get it.
let's go ahead and welcome Katie to her own show here, the podcast of heaven. Katie Asher. This is hosted by Katie Asher and inspired by her son Houston.
Mhm.
So, Katie, just give us a little bit of background. Just a short one for, I think we know a lot of listeners will be coming to this already aware of you, but just to explain how we got here.
Yeah, so um, obviously, a lot of people have heard about us from the telepathy tapes. And before the telepathy tapes was just our story where we had lived this incredibly difficult and challenging journey from non-speaking autism to the point where my son began communicating through spelling on the letterboard. And at that point, we found out that not only was everything the experts had told us not true about him, he was incredibly brilliant and was completely aware of everything that was going on. He was actually far more aware than what about what was going on than I was, than any of us are, because he has the ability to perceive both the physical and the metaphysical realm, the spiritual realm. And that revelation and everything that he experiences in the spiritual realm completely changed our lives, as well as his gifts and abilities and his extraordinary love for Jesus Christ and for wanting everyone to be a friend of God. And that is now what we do with our life is we share our story and bring hope. We bring a voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, and we bring truth to a world that has believed lies for far too long. And that was how we ended up writing the Book of Heaven, which he made me do. That was under duress. He was basically forcing me. So I wrote the book, and we were trying to find a book agent to help us promote the book and get our story out. And the book agents were like, no one will ever believe this. You need a scientist. And so I looked online and I found Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, and she was the only one really doing comprehensive research. And so I reached out to her and just blatantly said, I know you know that non-speaking autistics are telepathic, and I'd love to talk to you. And she immediately reached out to me, tested Houston. He passed every single test 100%. And she said, I'm actually doing a project with a filmmaker. Would you like to be a part of it? And that's how we met and became involved with Kai Dickens. And that was the telepathy
Wow.
tapes. So that was
Yes.
the journey. The book actually came before the telepathy tapes. So, and what
That
people
was
don't what people don't realize about the telepathy tapes is Kai's a filmmaker. She's not a podcaster. And she tried for 2 years to get networks to take this project on, and was astonished because the producers that she would meet with were so excited, many of them crying, many of them saying this is the best, pitch we've ever had. And then they would go to the upper levels of the executive committees for these networks, and they would say, this doesn't fit our mandate. We only do crime and celebrities. No one would be interested in this. It fits too small of an audience. And we're like, are you kidding me?
Oh, I know. So I was screening my short film at a film festival in Texas, and this guy was hammered, and he's like slamming beers, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so funny, dude. Your film's so great." I said, "Well, what do you do?" And he said, "Oh, I work at," and it's one of the top four agencies. There's
Mm-hmm.
like CAA, UTA, William Moore. He was at one of those. And what he told me in his drunkenness, in his drunken honesty, he said, "Yeah, we actually don't pitch ideas to people. They really just come from the top down, and then somebody lies and takes credit for it and says that they created it and they pitched it."
Oh,
So I was amazed by that, because that was what you want when you go to a film festival, is you want somebody to see it and make it. So I really respect Kai for pushing forward and making it because documentary filmmakers, they really do their due diligence.
Well, they're
And
basically some of the most honest journalists out there
oh yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they are backing everything up. They don't work for a network.
right. They're
They are putting
independent.
their names on it. And so the journalistic integrity that we actually expect in journalism is not found in these networks. It's actually found in these independent journalists who are doing the research themselves and who have a responsibility to look at all the different angles. And I think
And
that so many times in journalism, they have a propaganda, they have an agenda, and they
they're
just
given a
pursue.
script.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of those clips where they're all saying the same thing. They're like, "Oh, it's a crazy day this afternoon," and then the next one, "Oh, it's a crazy day this afternoon." Oh, it's a you're like, "Whoa,
We
it's the same script."
It really is. It's completely
Yeah,
propaganda, and I it's disturbing when you see it. Whenever somebody does the compilation, you can actually see it happening, and
yeah,
then you have to go, wait a second, what perspective do I have because I was manipulated versus that I actually have of my own thought and opinion, and that takes some separating yourself from the talking points to really investigate what you truly feel and believe and are led to pursue with your heart and your life.
right.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I was very skeptical of the telepathy thing and it scared me. It rocked my worldview. And I was thinking, like, oh, this demonic? And then I read your story. I go, oh, it's just the opposite. This is a miracle from God.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my left-handed compliment with the telepathy tapes. I didn't like that it spent so long proving it, but it was a necessity to do it that way.
Yeah.
But I want
Yes.
this podcast to be like, okay, you're already in with us. You buy it, you believe it. We're going to dive deeper into this now. And if
Yeah.
you still need proof, go listen to the podcast, read journal articles, definitely read the book. I think a lot of people that have read the book will be listening. But we want to welcome everybody. Even though all three of us are believers and stuff, we do welcome everybody and want you to participate and email us and stuff. So that was just kind of my thing.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
know, I think
Kate.
that's honest. That's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
honest, where a lot of people came from. And I always kind of like there's kind of three camps, right? You have the people who don't believe in anything, right? Who are like the
Yeah.
materialists, right? The only thing they believe is what they can touch and see and feel and hear, with their own hands in front of them. And they don't even believe anything on screen because they think, oh, there's special effects, there's this, there's that, there's sleight of hand. So there's so much skepticism. So you've got that group. And then you've got the group that doesn't really practice any discernment, right? Who thinks that anything spiritual is all good. It's all equal and it's all good. And then you have the other group who thinks that everything that you can't see is evil, right? I'm like, okay, can we like practice some discernment in all of
Yeah,
this?
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
fine balance.
I think a lot of work needs to be done to try to bridge the gaps between all those and see how much we're actually connected and how all these different schools of thought can be connected. And I think your contribution to the telepathy tapes was extremely profound, and Houston's as well. Like it had a profound impact on everyone who was listening because you really did experience such a journey your entire life, and you have devoted so much time and perseverance and persistence into like understanding the why behind everything that was happening to your son. And that's very relevant in the telepathy tapes, but I don't know if people who are listening who just came here from the telepathy tapes, you've got to read the book as well, the Book of Heaven, because it goes above and beyond. Like it goes so much deeper than they were even had the opportunity to go in the telepathy
And
tapes.
get ready to cry. That was 3 weeks. I think I read the book in 2 weeks or
Yes.
so, but I had to spend about a month and a half preparing myself to
Yes.
cry and
Because
being like,
there's a
okay,
life story here, and
this
it's
is
Katie's
rough.
life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah. And I mean,
Katie,
with the English background too, you could, and you say this in the book, because some English people say, "Oh, well, the build-up's too much. It's too much background." But then you wrote it in here. You go, "Well, you didn't actually go through this. I actually did go through this.
Yeah.
And because I went through this, I'm putting you in my shoes to take on this journey." And I think that's important. Good for you for doing it because you really have to get it. You really have to understand. You started with, I think you went back to your grandparents even and what they were like.
And
And I like that. I like that you really laid the foundation.
well,
well,
Katie has
the
a great
idea
way of
that,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna I was teeing you up. I was trying to tee you up. I was saying Katie has a great way of explaining why she
Yeah.
starts at the beginning. So Katie, tell us.
Yeah, well, we're all a product of who made us. And the reason why I think a certain way, value certain things, you know, had a certain mindset is because of my background and because of the people who raised me in their background. Like we all come from someplace. And how do you ever really get to know someone without knowing their roots? And our
Exactly.
roots are deeply important to us. And what we realize now is how everything's connected and how we're so connected to those people who came before us. They are a part of us. We are carrying their journeys along with our own. And those need to be honored. And this idea that we are these machines that exist as individual machines isn't accurate. We're all life and we're all connected. And so your life matters to my life, matters to another life, matters to all the lives, both before and coming, those that will come. It all matters,
And
all of us.
and to back that up, Stanford did a study that
Mhm.
showed that trauma, not just our own trauma, but our ancestors' traumas are transferred through our DNA.
Yes.
So it's part of our physical makeup, what
It,
our
and that is
ancestors went
so
through.
critical to understanding this, that we are energy itself. The things that happen to us actually leaves an impression on us. And if we do not process these traumas, they stay with us and we carry them on, we pass them along. And I think, Heidi and I have talked about this, but like, having the responsibility of just dealing with the trauma ourselves so it doesn't get passed on. And like,
Yes,
okay,
yeah, it's so important.
I'm gonna deal with this. Like it's gonna stop here. Like I'm going to process it so that it doesn't get shared to the next generation. And the responsibility and act of love that is, encourage. And all of us have these traumas. There's no one that didn't receive some. I do know that Houston talks, and when you read the book, you'll understand this more, how essentially certain emotions and ideas and thoughts, of course, they vibrate, right? And that
Hmm.
vibration emits energy, and the energy, of course, has a light, and the light has a color, right? So this is all
Yeah.
connected. And he talks about the purple people, right? And he says that,
That's the aura, right?
yes,
Okay.
exactly. And purple's very, very good, just so you understand. Purple is wonderful. It basically is either healing or hope. And
Ooh.
Oh,
and like deep, deep abiding hope that like basically it's not just hope for your own life, but all you see is hope. It's the people who see everything through
Yeah.
rose colored glasses, right? It's those people
oh,
who are just always hoping. And then also when we heal, we turn purple whenever we're healing.
Whoa.
And I know because
oh,
hope, of course, heals. So it makes
yes.
sense.
Just a weird,
Houston said I had a little bit of purple in
yeah.
me. So
That's
that's
because
so
you're,
exciting to
yes.
hear. Yeah.
And that country artist that sings rose-colored glasses, I have to shout
Mhm.
him out because he's from my hometown.
Oh,
He's
that's
like
awesome.
one of the most famous people. It's him and Sturgill Simpson.
I
So,
love that. And
rose-colored glasses.
well, the thing is he said some whole families are purple. and they don't
Ooh.
understand why the rest of the world can't get along and why they're so messed up.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, well, the rest of us are carrying gray and black and brown and like all these
I've
other energies.
I've ended
And
up lying to people because somebody tells me a lie and then I go, "Oh, well this is what this person told me." And then it just blow I'm like, "Why would you do that? Why would you lie to me? That makes me look like a liar." It's crazy.
Yeah.
and
Well,
all these things that we do, these acts, right? Like we hear something, we think something, and then we act on those, and we make choices. That these are actually have an impact on our spiritual and our physical nature. That this is actually can be passed down. And so, if you're going to pass something down, like what do you want to pass down? Like people think about inheritance, right? Like that you want this inheritance, you want to like create wealth to pass inheritance down. When really that's not what's of such great value. What's of such great value is your nature and your character that you would pass that down.
that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
And that's what this podcast will be about. We're just going to be continuing this conversation, this journey that Katie started with her book and through the contribution that her and Houston have made to the incredible project of the telepathy tapes and all her other podcast appearances. It's going to be a place of learning and unlearning and a space for curiosity and compassion and talking about belief and how to believe. Um, and we want
And
to
love.
know,
And how to
yes, and
love.
Yeah.
love.
Yeah, yeah.
We want to know, where the book left off. How where did things end there? What's gone on since? I want to know about, your family and everybody in the book
Right.
and how's everyone doing? Tell us.
Yeah, but maybe let's start with the family.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, my let's see. The Houston, I do have a job now. That's I think when I left the book, I still was unemployed. I do have a job. I am employed.
Oh, well, you were writing the book at the
I
end of
was
the
writing the
book.
book,
I
yes.
was like, whoa, we're in Inception now. I just made Heidi watch Inception.
Oh, the yes. So we got involved with the telepathy tapes,
Nice.
and that, of course, that project, developed into the podcast. And personally, I'm working full time. I'm taking care of Houston full time. I actually had to take a break on his college classes, which we talk about in the book, because it was too much for me to try to work full time and care for him full time and help him go to college. There's only
Wow.
so much of me, and so I do have a limited bandwidth, and I did had to make some choices. So we've put his college classes on hold right now, but we've continued to do podcast and get the word out and advocate for um, other spellers, other laws and advocacy that need changing and addressing in our schools and just in society at large. My other kids, they're I've had another. My daughter had another child, so I have a granddaughter now, and
Oh, yay,
Hey,
congratulations.
congratulations.
she's 3. She's so cute. She's in the midst of potty training. Day one was yesterday.
Wow. Yeah.
um, and one of my sons is in the military, and
Nice.
he's pursuing, his career. My youngest son and I bought a house together, which for me, I think is a really an amazing thing because it's going to be his house. And so I'm getting to invest with my son in something that will be a blessing to him for the rest of his life. And what
That's a
else do
cool
I need to
thing.
say? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we are.
Well, at the end of the book, there was a lot of debate about the letterboard and typing and
Mhm.
about how it's kind of like learning to play the piano versus a concert pianist. And
Yes.
I saw on the TikTok handle that he's typing now.
Well,
So that's
we work
amazing.
on everything. I'm going to just give I'm going to, okay, so this is like what we have on my desk. We
Yeah.
have, we have the letterboard.
There's the letterboard for
We
people
have,
listening. It's laminated
yes, a
colors. I like that
laminated
it's color
letterboard.
coded.
We have a wireless keyboard.
Ooh,
that I
yeah.
that we use without connecting it, because that's actually another set of energy that he's having to process. So we practice on this as well.
Whoa.
Yeah, people don't realize that they're having to process all this extra energy.
So let me get this straight. If it's connected to a computer, that's harder for him to do.
Much harder, much
Yeah.
harder.
Can you explain that a little? Like
Sure.
why you think it is or why it
Well,
is?
so their brains are, they are living more in their etheric body than their physical body. So you and I are more connected to our physical bodies. We're more grounded. So we are not as aware of all of this energy that's going on around us. In fact, we may be affected by it, but
And not
not
know it.
physically sense it. For example, if you're in an environment where there's a lot of stress, you can't physically necessarily sense the stress, but over time, your body will be affected by it.
Oh yeah.
So with Houston, because he's so much more connected to the etheric world, the metaphysical world, that's the one that he is incredibly sensitive to. So he's
Whoa.
sensing everyone's emotion, he's sensing the
Yeah.
change in temperature, the barometric pressure, and Wi-Fi, that's actually electromagnetic frequencies.
The
That's very,
buzzing.
very powerful.
He can hear the buzzing. Wow. Yeah,
And
I
it's
was
not just
amazed by
hearing it,
that in the book. Feeling
it's
it too.
actually, that stuff is actually transmitting information. So it's not even just like a buzz.
Oh.
He's actually having to have this barrage of information that's being transferred to this device, which is also, we
Wow.
also work on the iPad with a letterboard on the iPad. That is more difficult.
Yes, yeah.
And so,
But it took years of very determined practice for him to get to this point. It's not, I think that that's
Right.
something that we should like preface for, people who are just starting their spelling journey, that like, you look at something like Houston typing independently on a pad and get a little, like, I don't want people to get discouraged by that, but inspired by that. But it takes time.
well, we've been doing this 8 years. And the other thing I want to, bring up is that for Houston to type on a keyboard
Mm-hmm.
independently, that is an excruciating level of energy and focus that he has to process to do that skill. And I'd like to compare it to sprinting and running. If you wanted to sprint, you could sprint for a short distance and
Right.
do well. But if somebody wanted you to sprint for a mile, you wouldn't be able to do it because it
Oof.
exerts way too much energy. And so that's what, for Houston to be able to spell independently all the time, that would be like sprinting all the time. And he doesn't have enough literally energy to put that much focus and control over his body 100% of the time. That's why I always have
Oof.
all of these different types of boards with him all the time, so that wherever he is energy level, I can adapt to where he is at that moment. And people fluctuate from, like, non-speakers, their energy levels fluctuate from hour to hour. And it's
Whoa.
because they're taking in so much energy and so much is coming at them.
Wow. I've done 100-meter sprint before, which is a lap around a standard track. And I've
Yeah.
done a 40-meter sprint. And 40, that's tough to do. That's really hard to do. And essentially, for it's about two and a it's yeah, it's just crazy that sprinting that far. And the Olympians do 400 meters, which is
Which is
4 laps, which I
right.
think is a mile, which is what you mentioned. Yeah,
So what
you're really good at helping break it down and explain it.
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
you have an extraordinary ability to um just articulate the language of the how or why, and like in a way that is kind of clear for people who are just beginning to grasp all this. So what has changed like since leaving off at the book and through and going through the telepathy tapes? What um what have you incorporated into your, your care routine with Houston that makes it easier for him to do these sprints when he can?
Practice. Oh my goodness. We practice and practice and practice. And obviously working on his physically, we work on his biome, on correcting and healing his biome, because what people don't realize is the neurotransmitters that your brain uses are actually created in your gut. And your gut actually develops before your brain does in neural,
Whoa.
like in prenatal development. Like it's so critical that your gut is operating for your brain to operate and
So does he
function.
drink kombucha?
He doesn't, but we are.
We drink
I don't.
kombucha. We love it.
I don't think the texture, he would handle the texture very well, but we are working with some wonderful doctors who are also parents of non-speakers, who have been helping us to identify what bacteria what bad bacteria he has and what good bacteria he doesn't have, and what other things are going on that we have to address, as well as inflammation and other factors in his physical well-being that need to be addressed in order for him to have optimal health, in order to be able to create the connections that he needs that are what we call motor. That's what is really lacking in everyone, is their lack of understanding of motor and
Right.
physiology and neurology, as well as their lack of understanding of physics and energy and especially the quantum mechanics part of it.
Well, that's what the book did really well, is explain that, because uh to me, I'm telling other people now, I'm saying, look, people with nonverbal autism, they can't control their body. They're brilliant inside. It's not a neurological, well, it is a neurological issue, but it doesn't have to do with intelligence. It
I don't
just
even
is,
believe in, yeah, I don't
yeah.
believe in intelligence anymore at all. I believe that we are all brilliant, that God makes beautiful, brilliant people. And that's what he made when he made
Yeah.
every single one of us. And what people don't recognize is that there are aptitudes. You have an aptitude for one thing, I have an aptitude for something else. That doesn't make me dumb or
Right.
you smart. It just means that we each have an aptitude for one thing or another. And that's what God wanted, because there's so many different needs that we as his children need to work on in his world that he made in creation. And so we've each been given gifts in order to nurture and build up and beautify and heal his world.
I know I work out a bunch. Would you mind sharing the crazy workouts that you're doing with him? Because when
We
Heidi went to
do.
visit, like I haven't deadlifted this summer, but I deadlift every week. I've done that for like the past 5 years. And I was happy to see that you guys are deadlifting.
Oh
I
my
was like,
goodness.
that
And
is
that
awesome.
it's such a good exercise. So one of the other things that we, incorporate, of course, is an incredible amount of physical and not just physical training, but actually motor training specifically, as well as um, helping his vestibular and proprioceptive system coordinate together. Those are really critical functions to all motor. They're really the basis. The most primal sensory system that we have is vestibular, because that's where you are in space. And all the
Okay.
other senses are, and all understanding of motor is predicated on the ability to know where you are in relation to your environment and where your environment is in relationship to you. So if you don't have a good vestibular system, how on earth can you coordinate anything? Right?
Wow.
And so this is the issue with how we observe and judge. And we all do this, right? But we think that someone else is having the same experience sensory wise that we are.
Whoa. Yeah.
And because we think that they're experiencing the same thing we are, we make a judgment based on what we're experiencing, when in reality, they're having a totally different experience.
Yeah.
especially non-speakers who are not attached to their physical body and are processing, mountains more energy than we are. But even just like very simply, like visually, Houston sees triple of everything and it moves. And that has a direct impact on what they call your saccades and your pursuits, which is how your body uses that information in your vestibular organ to process movement. So if you're not getting the correct information, how on earth are you supposed to organize and plan your motor to execute your motor properly? And so whenever these people online look at and go, they start making judgments of non-speakers, it's all from this idea that they are operating with the same amount of information that the person judging is. And that's just not accurate. They're operating
Yeah.
with totally different information.
Yes, yeah. And then on top of that, to make matters even more challenging, they're they're not open to receive new information unless it's from sources that only they perceive are like reliable,
Right.
which is just bizarre
I'm
to
like,
me.
okay, sure, we can use reliable sources, can like, and I start talking to them about like basic physiology and anatomy, and they have no idea about any of it. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, well, this would be a place where you
It
can have some humility to say,
yeah.
maybe there's something I don't know, and
It
I
re
should be open.
it
Yes.
reminds me of watching sports games. You have like the fat drunk people, they're watching like highly trained athletes and they're like, "Well, I would have done it this way." It's like you wouldn't have done
I
it.
think
And then
a
there's this
nicer
whole
way to say
thing.
it would be armchair quarterbacks.
Right,
Maybe a nicer way to say it, Michael.
I'm gonna be the it's gonna be a spectrum here of like I'll say things the meanest way, and then you guys can help me filter it and bring
We'll
it back
filter it.
down
Yes.
because I mean well, but also but also those people are really mean too, you know?
well, and but Michael, I think you also your perspective is very important because you're saying what a lot of people are thinking. And I
Right.
think that
Yeah.
needs to be acknowledged so that we can actually go, okay, that's what people are thinking. Let's open that up. Let's break that
Yeah.
out.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Cool.
yeah.
So speaking of what people are thinking,
Cause see, a lot of
there's,
times, and I'll just interrupt again. A lot of times, I'm just unaware. I'm being dumb. I'm being silly, stupid. So it's good.
We don't even have to use any of those terms. You
Thank
know what?
you.
You're
I was
just
hoping you'd say that.
I think that's something else that we should stop doing is like, let's stop putting name calling on anything. Let's just say, okay,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
perspective. What other information is there that I can use to reframe how I see this? You
yeah,
know,
It's
because
I think it's the
every
Southern church that's got me in this headspace where it's like, I know we're completely pieces of garbage and undeserving. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, hey, don't talk about us that way. I
Michael was
mean,
raised Southern Catholic, so he's
well,
there's like the guilt aspect.
that's
Southern
actually
Catholic. Wow,
that's
yeah,
actually
that's a different.
it is really odd because usually you don't hear those two words together as much, but it
Yeah.
definitely exists.
Yeah. Well,
I grew
Heidi's,
up in a
yeah.
town where there were like I was right down the street and there was the Presbyterian church on one corner which backed up literally the churches almost touched against the Baptist church, which was catty cornered across from the Episcopal church, and then the Presbyterian church was catty cornered from the Methodist church. And I'm like,
Uh,
good grief. Like it's
Wow.
I know. It's just like, well, we disagree, so we're gonna start a new building here.
like we could all go to church together. That's an option.
It's like, yeah, we could do
Yeah.
that, you know? I'm with that. Heidi's from California, so she's more like neutral with it. She doesn't have the I mean, other than her, she went to church once and they locked her in a closet. And then
We're gonna jump right.
that kind of framed her church experience
Yeah,
where,
That
that's
was
you
pretty
know,
that was when
horrible.
I was a
yeah,
kid. Well, I'm not downplaying it, obviously,
5.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was a child, and I they said that they said thieves go to hell because I took a kid's pencil. I was collecting pencils at the time, and I liked it, and I like put it in my pocket, and
Curating.
they told me that thieves will go to hell, and then they put me on timeout in a closet. Yeah. So
Wow.
But let's go back to I want to know because we were having a good conversation there about like the way that the public has perceived all this. And you
Mhm.
know, there's so many different levels to like how it's being received out there. But just what about public response has surprised you the most or challenged you the most since the telepathy tapes
Oh,
came
that's a
out?
great question.
Yeah, there have been several different um, perspectives, and I think one of the ones that's really challenging is people want like no matter how much proof you give them, they still want more.
Oh, yeah.
And,
You
and
know what?
that's frustrating.
You know what somebody told
Shifting
me?
goalposts.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
good buddy of mine told me this. He said, some people aren't looking for truth. They just want to be right.
Oh, yeah. And if they found
Huge.
themselves on the wrong side in the beginning, they still don't have the humility to change sides.
Just doubling down.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
right.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of get it because everything's tied to competency these days. Even getting a job, you have to lie in the interview. Oh, this is what I was born for, was to, you know, do whatever, this and that. And
Data
it's like,
analytics. Yep, that was
yeah.
me. What I wrote
Uh,
down, what I want to be when I grow up.
and then they're like, okay, yeah, you. But if you're even honest in the interview, you're like, look, I'm really good at this. I do a great job. And yeah, when I go home, I go home. And when I'm at work, I'll do work. And they'll be like, no, no, we have to get the person that lied to
Yeah.
get the job. It's just so weird. Our
It
culture.
is well, and I think there's so many reasons for that. And I'm sure we will unpack them because I think you're hitting on a lot of things that are wrong in society that we have to manage because society has built itself on really bad values. And so even though they are not our values, we're still having to live in a world that's valuing all the wrong things.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think so that was one thing that really surprised me. I've also been just as equally overjoyed by the wonderful response and faith that it has sparked in so many people. And that was our goal. That was our hope. Um, so that was thrilling. I think one of the most upsetting things though is whenever we were talking about their ability to communicate with each other, which what they call that the hill in the telepathy tapes. That's what they call it. And I shouldn't say they call it that in the telepathy tapes. The telepathy tapes just repeated what these kids
Right.
are
It's
already
it's
doing.
what they
Yes.
call it
They
normally too.
they went into that on on
Yeah,
the telepathy tapes though. They featured the
they
hill. They talked a lot
they
about it.
did. But what was disturbing was so many people who are trying to go there, who are trying to break into these really what are sacred special places for these non-speakers to commune with each other, and they're basically outsiders that are trying to find a way through whatever meditation and whatever other means to break into these spiritual places. And I personally find that just disrespectful because it would be like barging into someone's home being uninvited, as if you have a right to be there just because you think that's really interesting what they're doing.
Oh, I'm laughing because it's uncomfortable. I have an artist friend who is in that art world, and people come and look at his art at his studio, but he also lives at his studio. And he says a lot of times these potential buyers come in and they're like looking at his bed and they're touching his bed sheets and they're looking at his pans and his dishes. They're really just curious about how he lives. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to buy the thing on the wall or not?"
Yeah. Well, and I think people are curious, and I understand curiosity. Um, but curiosity does not give people a right to forego decency.
Right. I mean, there's
and
a better
respect
way
for
to
other
handle it. Yeah.
people's, yeah.
Well, and also I think that there's like you have mentioned that there's a lot of people who are claiming very publicly that they go to the
Mhm.
Hill and then that they carry back messages
Yes.
like on behalf of these non-speakers
Yes.
and and it
I
doesn't
am not okay
align.
with that.
Yeah, that's I think that that's very
That's what
uh
I was alluding to. I probably didn't go, and thank you for bringing it up very specifically, but this is not like the other parents. We don't attempt to go into that space because that is their private space. And we wouldn't want to be intrusive. We want to respect their privacy. And we also honor their words that they spell to us. And we don't have any, it would be like, I'm going to bypass this relationship between a mother and a child, and I'm going to go and invade their privacy and then supposedly get a message and bring it back. And that I find that the people that are sharing these messages are not using any discernment in how or what they're sharing. And that concerns me as well. And Houston is, of course, extremely mature. So he has the ability to, he knows exactly what is I'm just going to go ahead and go there, but they are aware of the spiritual realm, and there are spirits in the spiritual realm. Houston, because he is mature, has the ability to discern between good and bad.
Right.
Even if someone is disguising themselves, or not, I shouldn't say someone, even if a spirit is masquerading as good, Houston has the ability, because he's wise and mature, to discern between good and evil. And that is what,
Has he explained to you how a spirit can masquerade as good when it's evil?
yes, they essentially act as if they are there as an angel of light, as a protector, as a defender, but the messages don't align with scripture. And that's always the way to tell, is do
Oh,
the
okay.
messages align with scripture? If they're telling you to be fearful, does that align with scripture? If they are telling you to doubt, is that in line with scripture? If they're telling
Whoa.
you, oh, you shouldn't do this thing that God expects you to do, does that align with scripture? Like, it's really going back to having the discernment to know what the will of God is and walking in that and not listening to other voices. And that we do that. We don't do a great job of it, but I mean, we are confronted with that all the time. And remember, whenever, like in the Bible, when Jesus, told Peter, I'm going to be persecuted. I'm going to be handed over to the chief priests. I'm going to die. Like, I mean, and Peter took Jesus aside and said, don't talk like that. And Jesus said to him, get behind me, Satan. He knew exactly what was influencing Peter and what voice Peter
Whoa.
was seeking. He was like, you're listening to,
Oh.
yeah. He's like, I'm seeking my father's will. And you're seeking like it's having that perspective. What does God want versus what does man want?
Wait, Peter didn't even know it.
Correct. And that is
Wow.
that's the reality, is that we're constantly being influenced by all of these other voices. And if you don't really truly know what the word of God says, it's very easy to be deceived.
That and that's mind-blowing. And I know that Houston has said and other non-speakers have said that the Hill is very much protected from that.
It is.
Um and I think that I, I always endeavor to try and see myself in others and like why would they make the choices they make. And I think a lot of the people who have attempted to go to the Hill, I think they had good intentions. I think they want to help. They want to just be a part of it. They want to understand and learn. So, what do you think would be a more healthy and respectful way for people to do that
Another good
rather
question.
Another
rather than
great
try?
question. The best way to develop a supportive advocacy relationship with non-speakers is to do the hard work of becoming a communication partner. and developing the skills and the practice and because there's like a whole like protocol, like it's a scaffolded approach where you build up those motor skills and that connection with a non-speaker so that you can reliably know that they're the one communicating and that their message is authentic. And the only way to do that is through understanding the process and doing the hard work. It's like any type of a motor coaching. Like, for example, if I watched a basketball game, do you think it's appropriate for me to go and coach basketball? No.
No. Yes.
But that's what we have right now.
Well, you're not a Kentucky basketball fan, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is what's happening. People are going, oh, I just saw them do that. Now I can do it. And that's just not true. Like, there's so much more involved that you actually need to do the hard work and go through the process and understand the mind-body disconnect, understand regulation, understand energy, understand the breaking the motor down into the different levels of motor and then progressing through that motor progression. And that is the way to appropriately, respectfully support non-speakers, not by going into a telepathic state to try to communicate to people who genuinely have those abilities. And we're not really sure if other people have those abilities or if they are opening themselves up to being deceived. And Houston explained energy that he said that you have to be rooted in Christ and that is critical, because if you're not, that you're just wide open to everything.
Wow.
And that fundamental being rooted in Christ that is the foundation. You can't sit there and dabble in things that are energetic without having a solid foundation in truth, in Christ, in the creator, in the source of everything.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and that's such a galvanizing like call to action there. It's like, okay, you want to be a part of this, you want to help this, that we have to contend with like all the challenges and all the work that needs to be done here in the material realm. Like, you're trying to fast forward here through stuff that they've had to live with and earn their whole life. Like, get to know them better, be a spelling coach, like be a communication partner. That's one of my goals and I'm working towards. I'm very excited about that.
And I'll share a reframing moment, because the book kind of ruined me, Katie, your book, because you get to read these paragraphs that Houston wrote in just minutes, and you're just flying through his beautiful writing. And then I remember this, I forget who it was. It was somebody with a black aura that he was talking to, and Houston was using the board to spell to him. And the guy's just thinking like, oh gosh, this is taking forever. And then he like brushed him off. Oh, I gotta run. So, I mean, patience.
It takes a very long time, and
right.
Patience is required. And thank you for bringing that up. This isn't fast.
Right.
These incredible, I'm always astonished by how much Houston can say in a short paragraph, like the depth of truth that he can communicate in a short paragraph, but he's very intentional with his words, because it does require so much time and energy. And he doesn't play around. He's not trying to protect anyone's feelings. He's trying to get to the truth as quickly and efficiently, and as just he's not being political. He has no time to be political. He's going to be truthful. And that's his intent. And sometimes the truth is very painful, as it's been with me. And he's had to, confront my doubt and really just make me realize that I thought I was just being intelligent, right? By doubting things. And that's because that's literally how we're all taught, is we're taught to be skeptical. We're taught to doubt. Right. And here he was challenging what I thought was being smart. because to trust and to have faith, that's what was considered being stupid. Like that's what naive, gullible people do. Smart people are skeptical and they need evidence and proof. And here I was operating in that framework, which is how we're all taught to think and taught to process information. And he had to challenge me on that. And his words were very direct and they hit right to the core of what I allowed, how I thought, what I allowed myself to consider true, what was my basis for truth. It really got to the root of everything very quickly. And that was good because then I was left with choices. If we
Well,
play around and we're tiptoeing around and never really getting at the truth, people aren't confronted with having to make choices.
Yes,
the
yeah,
word
and that's
choice
that's
to
a
me,
gift from God.
Yeah.
to me, the word
Choice.
choice was beautiful. The word, he called them rotten thoughts.
Yes.
And I don't hear the word rotten used in everyday lexicon now,
Mm-mm.
in the vocabulary of our culture right now. But you think of like a garden, and it was this once beautiful piece of fruit, but now it's rotten. So now it's no good. You can't use
Mm-hmm.
that anymore.
Yeah, and
And
our
yeah,
pastor mentioned this in church today. What happens when you put a piece of rotten fruit next to a fruit that's fresh and ripe? It gets rotten too. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
spreads.
it spreads exactly if you put that out, and if your thoughts are rotten, that spreads as well. And that just
Yes.
goes back to how important it is for all of us to work together to find these truths with each
Right.
other. Like
Yeah.
that this isn't something we just do alone. Um and I think that that's why you wrote like why Houston, you know, charged you with writing that book and with participating in this project because he's profoundly aware of how important it is that we all collectively uh
Believe.
yeah, believe exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Presume
I'll,
competence.
yeah,
And
go
believe the
ahead.
truth. And
Yes.
because I think there are a lot of people right now that believe things that aren't true. And that's just as important is to address things that are not true, that do not align with scripture, that do not align with even ultimate um, understanding of creation and what's healing and health and what's wellness for all of us. And we can't continue in lies and doubt and destructive practices and expect good results, expect health, expect wellness. It just doesn't work that way.
So Katie, you have a book where you go into this.
Mhm.
You've been featured in the Telepathy tapes going into this. You guys have Kai's working on the documentary film that's
Mhm.
coming out. So people
Yes.
will have this a visual
Early
representation
next
of what's
year.
going on.
Mhm.
That's right, early next year.
We so she right now, and it is late June, so 2025. She is in the UK finishing up filming. And I would say she has a few random pickup days that she has to get a few little pieces here and there. But the film is largely completed with the filming aspect. And then it will require the editing and of course the just the compilation. And there are a few other, scenes that we'll have to add, but it's mostly completed by the end of summer. And then it'll just be editing and then release in the spring.
That's right. Yeah, it's so exciting. And the Book of Heaven has an audio version that you're working on. So
Almost done. That's what my daughter
Oh,
is.
cool.
She is doing the audiobook, and it has been a labor of love that has taken a lot of time and energy. And when I talked to her yesterday, she said she had about 4 hours left to record.
okay, that's not much.
It
That seems like it's
sounds
coming
it
along.
sounds like it's not a lot, but to do 4 hours actually takes a lot more than 4 hours. So
What's the
Yeah,
ratio,
of
you
course.
think?
I have no idea, and she won't give me that kind of information because she feels pressured when I
Oh,
start.
Oh, well, I mean, she's a mom of two
Yeah,
young kids, and
yes.
is
it's
she
And
it's
having
works
to
tricky.
full
edit
Everybody's
time.
it
got
too?
lives.
Does she have to
No,
edit it
she has
too?
an editor. She does
Oh,
have an
cool.
editor. So yeah, it's definitely getting much closer than it has been. And y'all, just so you understand, like she was 2/3 through and had to switch computers, and in the process lost everything and had to start
Oh,
over.
Ugh,
So
yeah,
that's been, I'm giving her a lot of grace because I know that just devastated her when that happened. And it just, these things take time. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
hope
you
everybody
know,
will just be very patient.
even though it is horrible to happen, after she gets it done, I think she'll find, well, you know what? I was able to execute it better because I went back and did it.
She
But
she actually
please don't
told me
tell her
that.
that. But please don't tell her that before. Because
She
right when it
actually
happens,
already,
it's,
yeah,
oh,
she already said that because
yeah.
I think when the reality is it's because it's our story, it was very painful for her to
Oh,
do the audio. And she was struggling emotionally, having to share so much of that painful part of our own story that
oh.
was part of her story too.
Yeah, I can't
And
even imagine. Yeah.
I was sharing with Heidi, so it was that moment where you guys find out about Houston's telepathy and the trauma and stuff. And I was thinking about it from every one of your point of views, and it's just so heartbreaking
it
for
is.
each and every one in a completely different, unique way. It's like it's rotten to in a different way for everyone.
And all of my kids still have enormous amounts of guilt that they carry because of how they interacted with Houston for 2 decades.
Mm.
And that is something they all carry. I carry it differently because I was like mom, right? I'm like still trying to love and everything, but they were more resentful and irritated and angry, and you know, so they carry all of that still. And
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully they can
No,
let
that's
that
fine.
go because as a mother and a sibling, that's a different it's different vibes of interaction.
mhm.
So I mean, they weren't fully aware. So you can't hold yourself to a standard that you're not aware of. If you're not aware it exists, then you shouldn't hold yourself to
Well,
that, you know?
I think whenever we realize the extent of Houston's brilliance and heart, and then you go back and you all those memories start playing, there's just such a sense of why didn't I get it? Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I, all the why if, what if, not just the why didn't I, but the what have we lost? And we do still feel a profound sense of loss for all that we have lost.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it just hits me,
Yeah.
and I'm almost unable to breathe at the extent to what we have lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
And
lot.
I
I still haven't gotten like that hasn't obviously in Christ it will be restored. Everything will be made new. But I still live with the loss.
Yeah.
Well, we as
Well,
listeners
don't should yourself. Don't should yourself. That's what our
Thank you.
yeah.
therapist told us.
I like that.
Because she said that, it's like what you're doing. It's like
Yeah.
you're doing, so.
It's
We
just I think what gets you is that you listened to the experts instead of to your own heart.
Oh, yep.
And that as a mother just guts you.
but I thought about this a lot last night actually. Sometimes you don't know what was the right choice until you make a few wrong ones.
I
Unfortunately.
I
That's
was telling
that's life.
someone, Yeah, I was
It's
telling someone, yeah, the reason my book resonates with so many people is because I owned how not to do everything. And so everyone can go, okay, she can admit that, so I can admit it too.
Yes, yes, that's what I think that's why it's so important that you have your life story in there and all the trauma and trials that you've gone through so that people are like just very acutely aware of what it took to believe and receive miracles the way that you do ultimately by the end. And we as listeners, we're going to give your whole family a lot of grace and patience and
Thank
just
you.
gratitude too, because you're trying to share this story all the ways you can while also still working full time and being a full time caregiver to Houston and a mother to other children and a grandmother. So
And fighting
we
the
have these.
deer off my hydrangeas, there's that
Yeah.
too. We can't forget that.
Yes.
That is, I feel like, a good portion of my life right now. Um,
somebody
So,
somebody mentioned something cool. I forget who said it, but I think they called it like the revelation of the method. It's just like the evil of evil type of thing. So like if I tell you to eat an apple and it's poisoned, well that makes me a murderer. But if
yeah.
I tell you, "Hey, this is a poison apple. You're gonna die if you eat it here." And then you eat it, well now you've it's different now. It's a suicide. So
oh, okay.
that's yeah.
Well,
Well,
let's.
I definitely don't want anyone to eat anything poisoned. So I'm going to do everything I can to show you all the lies that we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
believed and
Yeah.
point them out to you so that you reject them and
Right.
instead eat the truth
Yeah.
of the bread of life. And that
What
is
do
what I
you,
want everyone to see.
Yeah.
Katie, what do you hope listeners will take away from this podcast?
uh Hope. I want them to believe. I want them to
Yeah.
be so completely convinced that our thoughts have the power to change our lives and that the word of God is completely worthy to be fully trusted and that his faithfulness is bigger and better than anything we face, and that we should be looking to his word and not our circumstances.
And
Wow.
that's what I love
That's
about
ambitious.
Yeah.
But
that's what I love
but
about the
it's
book is
so honorable.
because it fully informs. Like if you were to just watch the telepathy tapes, it's like, whoa, all this, it's like give me some context. And the book gives the context.
Well, and I
That's what
think
I
what
love
it
about it.
I went to great lengths to go into the science as well as the word of God to show how these were actually
Yeah.
matching, and that and give people like a contextual understanding of all of it so that people could come to what I know is the right conclusion versus I feel like
Right.
in the telepathy tapes, because not everything is addressed, people can jump to their own conclusions, which um, I feel like some of the conclusions people have jumped to are dangerous.
Oh
And
yeah.
But
yeah,
that's the give and take that you have to sort of like risk when you're putting information out on different platforms. The each platform is going to have its limits on how this information is conveyed, but that's why it's so cool. And like, I'm excited to help be a part of it too, for you to have your perspective out on social media. We Asher.house, by the way, on Instagram, TikTok, and your website is Asher.house.
mm-hmm.
Um, oh, TikTok's Asher House Hope, and Instagram
Yes.
is Asher
Mm-hmm.
House Hope. But the website is Asher.house, which has resources too, like the resources of things that we've mentioned on the podcast today. The doctors who treat Houston's gut biome, that resource is on the website, and we'll be getting into that a lot. We'll be talking about, I think, so anyway, my point was that what's great about a podcast is that we have more time now to get into topics that like may not have been covered before and how they all intersect, like faith, miracles, science, the disability justice part of it too. All the stuff Katie's working on right now for disability advocacy. Um, and it's just to share and hold space and inform and inspire people.
Well, and I also want to hear what are people's real questions and what are they
Yeah.
struggling with so that I feel like a lot of people stay stuck because there's something that some belief, some fear, some lack that they're missing. And to whatever means I can, I want to pour into those spaces where, because as society as a whole, we have lost the ability to believe. And we
Yes.
need to learn how to believe again.
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm big into recognizing what my programming has been. That way I can isolate something that's limiting, a limiting belief that's not allowing me to be my highest and best self. But in order to do that, you have to isolate it. You have to find it in order to change it. And it's
Yes.
usually not very pretty when you find it and you go, "Oh man, I do that." And it's like you were mentioning with Peter. He didn't even know that he was being used as a mouthpiece for evil.
That's
So
exactly right.
yeah, it's the
So
same
if
for us
you,
too. We have to figure out what that is. And um, I read all of Joe Dispenza's books for a while, and
Mhm.
his first one, he talked about the programming of a new habit. And we have dendrites in our brains, and these dendrites are receptors, and it's kind of like a boat dock, these boats go and they undock. And it's the same way when we're negative or have rotten thoughts or whatever. These boats show up and then they unload all the, different hormones and emotions that we feel. But if we retrain our mind and say, okay, you know what, we're going to not let that boat undock. But it's going to take a lot of times. That boat's still going to show up after 200 times, even though you haven't um, let it unload. It's still going to out of the habit. But the cool
And
thing is you can reshape and change.
your brain, that's what's incredible about the neuroplasticity of the brain is we have the ability to change our brains and to change our mind. When you change your mind, you change your life.
Oh, yeah.
And that is just fundamental. We know this. All matter comes from spirit. Our thoughts create our lives. And those are choices. Those thoughts are choices. And people can speak lies into us, but we don't have to receive them. And so what I hope is that this place will be just a place where we can encourage and love and speak truth into people's lives so that they are deeply rooted in the love and faithfulness of God and have no reason to listen to any other lie.
yes, yes, I love it. I'm so excited. And we want to hear from our listeners. We want to answer the questions that you guys have. So, find us on our social channels.
The
You can shoot
podcast
us
of
questions.
heaven at gmail.com.
And real
Yes.
quickly, I know Houston would want to like just pop in and say
Yes.
hello.
Oh, that
So
was my
hold on
next
one second.
question.
Let me grab
Okay.
him real quick. Houston,
Yes.
you want to come say hi? Houston, come here. Hold on one second.
That's all
That's
right.
okay.
We can fill in here
Yeah, we
while we're
can cut
waiting
this
for
part
him
out.
or leave it in. But yeah, so they can reach out on the TikTok handle and email us on the website.
Yeah, it's at Asher House Hope for Instagram and TikTok. You can
Okay,
email us. You can go to the website. Here's Houston.
here. Say hi.
Hey,
Hey,
hey, Houston.
What's up,
We miss
buddy?
you. I miss you. How are you? I love
He's
his
got
shirt.
one
I'm
on.
in here.
He's got one on. Yeah, his one of his "I'm in here"
I'm
shirts.
in here.
We've now had two different people make him "I'm in here" shirts. Which, if
I
anyone
love it.
doesn't know, if you haven't heard, the very first thing Houston ever spelled independent was in answer to the question, if you could put any slogan on a T-shirt, what would it be? And he spelled IMINHERE. and my
Amen
life
here.
changed forever.
It's such a miracle. It's like the perfect epitome of what all this is about. And just like what this podcast is going to be about.
Well, it's
like,
a statement.
I'm in
It's
here.
saying,
Well-
hey, I have a lot to say.
Well, it's truth that
Yeah.
we are not our bodies. We are our
Right.
spirit. That's who we are. We are not our bodies. We are not our motor. And most people don't even realize that we are not born with motor. Motor is something you develop over time. So we are who we are, whether we have motor or not.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Does Houston have a message, or is that Houston's message for today for this first podcast? I'm in here.
I think so. He was napping, so I didn't get a message.
It's okay.
I guess his message is Sundays are for rest.
Sundays are for rest. Yes, definitely.
Yep.
And
Or whatever
and
Sabbath
people
you
have
take
really
out
forgotten
there.
that. Yes.
Well, yes, exactly. Whichever day that is, whether it is Saturday, the original and true Sabbath, or Sunday as we have celebrated it for many years.
Watch TV.
Yes. Anything.
And I feel like it's a good vibe for our first show because it's kind of like hanging out after church.
Yeah.
You know,
I love
We're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
talking and
Oh,
you're
wow.
hanging out and stuff.
Well, I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful that you wanted to collaborate with us and do this. And I'm grateful to the listeners and excited to continue. And Katie, do you have anything else to say to kind of sign us off?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for you guys. I honestly am excited.
Thanks.
I am really, y'all, just listeners out there, just to understand, like, we're sharing our hearts and our lives and really opening up. And and that's a gift that we're trying to give the world. And I hope it's received that way. We're not here to preach. We're here to teach and to love and to give people hope.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
thank
sharing
you.
is caring.
Yes.
So, and you guys care a lot. So I'm just
So-
very excited that this can be a space for that.
Keep following for more, give us a review, rate us. The next episode is going to be about how to believe, what miracles are, and our role as image bearers. So I'm excited to get into that.
Put all
It's a
that
big
in
one.
one. Gosh.
We might make it a
Maybe more than
two-parter.
one.
Or yeah.
Things we can come back to over and over again.
Oh, definitely. Like we're flexible here. So
Are we at an hour already? I wasn't even looking at the clock.
It's gone past that, so that's why I was trying to wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Wow.
Awesome. You guys are fantastic. And I'm just thrilled that God has brought y'all into our lives and that you are partnering with us, because I could not do this without them at all.
Aw.
This would not be happening if they were not involved. It would literally never, ever, ever happen. So thank you.
No, thank
Well,
you. It's a pleasure.
I shared with you before how things come full circle. The guy, Duncan Trussell, who mentioned the telepathy tapes on Rogan, I
Yes.
gave him a ride. It's a long story. I gave him a ride to a funeral one time because we have a mutual friend. So it was, I don't know. I think life's funny like that. It just lets you
We're
know
all
that
connected.
we're all connected and you're on a path no matter what, and that God's the one in control. And guess what, all you skeptics out there, if you don't believe in God, God still believes in you.
Yes, exactly. And trust in God is also trust in yourself. So that's
And
really
those
important.
intuitions that we have.
The
good ones, right?
Right.
That aren't
I don't
masquerading.
want to trust in myself unless I'm following him.
Right.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Goes hand in hand.
yes.
Well, is that
Okay.
it? Is that our first
Yeah.
episode? Do we have
All
our
right.
first episode?
Pretty
Episode
much.
1, woo!
Well,
All right.
we'll
Well,
go-
thank you guys.
Michael will go back and listen and see where a good spot to end that at. I'm not sure.
Thanks for listening to the Podcast of Heaven. Email us at podcastofheaven@gmail.com. We're on Instagram and TikTok at Asher House Hope. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes and listen to us everywhere podcasts are found. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.